Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Michael A. Graham, aka the Multi-Voice Reviewer. I have many voices, but one opinion. And today, I have to say something. I remember when I watched that Avengers Infinity War. I remember that Iron Man called Star-Lord here Flash Gordon. Star-Lord was talking to Spider-Man, talking about Footloose, and asked him, "Isn't it the greatest movie in the world?" And Spider-Man says, "Never was," and he was like, "What?" And and of course, Iron Man called him, "We're getting nothing from Flash Gordon here." But of course, Star-Lord said, "Hey, you calling me Flash Gordon? I take that as a compliment." But the reason why I mentioned this is exactly my review for the day. Since I did Buck Rodgers, I decided to do another one. Flash! Savior of the universe, down, down. You know, I don't know why, I just love the song. I love this theme song. So, and since I did mention about Dynamite Entertainment, you know how I always love Dynamite Entertainment. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Dynamite Entertainment, just look up my Buck Rodgers review. So, since Dynamite Entertainment did their version of Buck Rodgers, let's dig into their version of Flash Gordon, the Man from Earth, and see how Dynamite Entertainment did their version of Flash Gordon. Let's do this, shall we? Flash! From the beginning, it did started where everybody is celebrating NASA coming back from their space trip, and all of a sudden, Dale Arden herself, you know her, Dale Arden, the love interest to Flash, she decided to call it quits because she is fed up with how the news people are telling her what to say and what not to say, so she quit. Meanwhile, Hans Zarkov, the scientist who journeys along with Flash and Dale, he's in a bar getting drunk. That's right. And of course they made me Russian, of course. So I'm pretty much a typical Russian stereotype who lived my entire life drinking vodka. I know, my Russian is pretty good. I mean, I may not speak Russian, but at least I do a good impression of a Russian... I do a good accent of Russia. Yeah, I think it's because me being part Romanian, it's kind of close. Meanwhile, Flash Gordon decided to do... Now, here's one thing I have to say. Now, one thing I need to, I remember when I did my review of Flash Gordon in the past. Now, I remember in the graphic novels, not the graphic novels, but the comic strips, he started out as a Harvard graduate and also a professional polo player. Now, not many people don't think much on polo because, well, polo is not as popular as basketball, football, hockey, soccer, or baseball. I mean, all the sports that we know is pretty much a common one, but polo is not one of the common ones. And only rich people play polo, that's all I know. I remember that when the DC owned the rights of Flash Gordon, they made him into a basketball player. And then when they did the 80s movie, they made him into a quarterback. And then on the dramatic, Flash Gordon TV series for the Sci-Fi Channel, they made him into a track runner. So they always kept changing his background. But one thing that's pretty common, that Flash Gordon is a Harvard graduate. So he'd been through Harvard. But in this comic book, he's just more of a freelance daredevil. Because one thing he did, he bungee jumped through the bridge. And coming towards him was a bunch of guys with their rowboats. And he was like, oh, ho ho, what timing. But of course it bounced back, and just waving at the people who was stroking on their rowboat, he hooked himself from the bungee cord and took a big dive. Everybody going like, woo, way to go, Flash, anything you want to say, and everything. And then all of a sudden, this girl with a cell phone next to her ear and shades, turns out that she has a call from Flash Gordon's father, and here's a message that her father is sending to Flash. A big slap in the face. And of course, his father being a disappointment that he doesn't do exactly what his father told him, he just wants to do whatever he wants to do. Do you ever have that kind of feeling when you always have a father figure who tells you what to do, but you decided to do the opposite? That never happens to me. I mean, I never had people telling me what to do. They just let me do what I do. Do what I do best. And then in today, where Flash, Zarkov, and Dale, they were in the rocket ship trying to make their escape while two of Ming's army were firing their lasers at them, trying to kill them. But of course, turns out that Zarkov had a quantum crystal, and it teleported them to another planet. So now, instead of just going through space, now Zarkov found this glowing crystal, where it turns out to be a quantum crystal. I think it's called a quantum crystal. I would correct myself, but it teleported them to other planets. They went into an Arctic planet, a desertous planet, and then there's a planet full of water, and it's covered with Lovecraftian creatures that I knew H.P. Lovecraft would have loved. Yeah, that's the thing about Lovecraftian creatures. My people worships Cthulhu, your people worships Yog-Sothoth. Can you imagine what our children will look like? I'm sorry, I just wanted to do that reference. I wanted to make that joke and that sound. People always said I sound really creepy making that sound, to make it sound like I got tentacles in my mouth. Anyway, they went through another portal while Ming the Merciless talking to his generals, telling them what they found, and they said that they couldn't find Flash anywhere because he always kept jumping portals. And of course, Ming, being a typical villain, he got really pissed that he himself have a quantum crystal and it's on his power ring, and he zapped his general, vaporizing him. Don't you hate it when you have a villain who kills his own men because of their failure? It's not their fault. I mean, come on. But, you know, you always have a bad guy who don't understand, and they just want to kill just for the, help ease their anger, sort of thing. Until all of a sudden that they landed into a planet full of trees. They crash landed into a planet, and they were looking about until they found a tunnel on that tree planet, and they found a huge, humongous, giant slug living in that tree, about ready to go after them and about ready to eat them, until a bunch of arrows start shooting at them. And it turns out that they were saved by a bunch of blue-skinned native people led by Prince Baron. Now, if any of you remember Timothy Dalton's character, Prince Baron, I mean, the way they made Prince Baron, he's like a Robin Hood-like guy, bald with a mustache, even though Timothy Dalton wouldn't shave his head. But now they made Prince Baron look like Timothy Dalton, but with blue skin and no hair, right here. What is it that Timothy Dalton has against the women? I want to know. Anyway, they showed up and known where they're from, but Dale lied and say that they were from Mongol. So they decided to treat them with some hospitality, and they offered them some food. And as well, Zarkov, as usual, being a typical Russian, he likes to get more liquor. He likes to get. I mean, him being a brilliant scientist, he likes to get drunk. So he was like, "Keep the drinks coming." Oh, Zarkov. And of course, he says that even though this alcohol they have, I mean, it's good, but it doesn't pick a well up on my home planet. This is water. Relax. I don't drink. I only drink on special occasions. Anyway, Prince Baron told them that there is a certain challenge that some of his people should do. They could go into this one sort of well, what do they call it? I mean, there's a crater full of these giant rolling bugs, and there's one rolling bug in the middle with an arrow sticking out one of his shell. And as usual, Flash Gordon takes the challenge. He jumps into that thing, sees those rolling bugs just rolling about. He kicked one, it rolled into a ball, and started rolling about while Baron ordered his men over to try to stop him, but he aimed a rolling bug towards them, and he jumped. He bounced off one of the rolling bugs and got in the back and the one in the middle and grabbed the arrow out of his shell. That's one thing about Flash Gordon. He's the kind of guy who would take a challenge. And now another thing that they do in their celebration is they have a tree full of these glowing fruit orbs. And one of them should shoot their arrow right at the orbs, and then they explode. So I guess they're filled with some sort of nitroglycerin substance. Flash shot one, made a big boom. But of course, Baron shot his arrow, made a... But of course, Flash Gordon aimed with a big pile of that stuff, and... Big explosion. Whoa. But they're fine. But of course, Zarkov is like, what's with that confounding noise going on in the forest? But anyway, it's time for Prince Baron to take some of his people, where it turns out that he still is under Ming's control. So he has to take some of his people to Ming's secret lab. And of course, now this is pretty neat, I gotta say. Prince Baron has this this giant wooden boat controlled by 4 giant birds. Right here. That is really neat. I can't get over how they do that. But anyway, they flew all the way to Ming's lair. Has a huge statue of Ming standing like this. Oh, in case you want to know what Ming the Merciless looks like, I forgot to show you guys what Ming looks like. I forgot. Sometimes I do show less, but I do mean to show more to you people. To you guys. Let's see. Here's Ming right here. They do really make him look a little bit sort of combined between the movie and the serials. But anyway, they went to the lair where Prince Baron took some of his people who are slave into that lair. While Zarkov, on the other hand, he's a master on robotics, so he took a look on one of their giant robots. And of course it shows that, you see, Prince Baron takes his people to their lair, and they do twisted experiments on them. They're turning them into human animals. Does the name Dr. Monroe mean anything to do? Dr. Alan Monroe mean anything to you? For those of you who don't know that story, it was a story about a mad scientist who lives in an island because he was exiled from his country. So one thing he did in that island, he turned every single animal in that island into humans. So he's been making like human animal hybrids. And this is what Ming is doing right here. And of course, Flash Gordon, having sympathy for them, he saved one. And this one was a human lion man named Thun. And this is Thun right here. Now, that's one thing I did mention. I mean, I remember when I talked about the Great Adventures of Flash Gordon, the cartoon series, and I did mention that there was a lion man in that cartoon, and I said he was made up. My mistake. He's not made up. He was definitely in the comics, except he was an alien species who are part human, part lion. But on this story, he's one of Prince Baron's people who turned into a human lion. So, Flash Gordon saves Thun and starts destroying some of the machine, and he also saved this guy, who is a human rhino, until they finally realize it's Flash Gordon. Even Prince Baron discovered he was Flash Gordon. And Ming wanted to know what was going on, and the robot showed him what it is and who it was. And of course, Ming saw him and was like, "Flash Gordon?" And Gordon was like, "What's up, Ming? Sorry about our eye, bro. Sorry about your eye, bro." And here's one thing I noticed that Ming has. It looks pretty neat. Ming has a pet. It looks like a mix between an owl and a tiger. Right here. That's a pretty interesting animal to have. Oh, and a real shocker, one of the small robots has a humanoid brain. So I guess they took his brain and put it in a mechanical body. But anyway, they captured Flash Gordon and put him into the arena where they, when they forced those human animals to fight each other to the death. And one guard says, by being the first to kill this one in battle, which he points to Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon just sits there and sarcastically says, "Awesome." And of course the arena started. And of course, Flash was making a speech telling them that they don't have to do what they tell you to do. You can stand up against Ming. Ming's a coward to fight for himself. Some of you can stand up to him and stop him. But of course, each and every animal guy, they'd rather kill Flash. So he was like, "Okay, you asked for it." So they fighting against those animal guys, and all of a sudden, this hawk showed up until Thun showed up and saved Flash, saying, "You spared my life, so you are in my debt." So now Thun decided to fight along with Flash, so he kept fighting against all the other monsters until a big gorilla guy shows up, grab him by the neck, and tries to squeeze their neck, trying to snap them, until he gets impaled by the rhino guy that Flash saved. Rhino is like, "Flash, you saved my life, so I am in your debt too. So I'll fight along with you." And of course, Ming couldn't believe what goes on, so he wants to take another challenge. So he hits a button, and weapons popped out. And, well, that's the thing. Flash being... One thing I discovered about Flash Gordon, now he's in Harvard, and there is a group in Harvard where, he masters sword fighting and fencing. So that's one thing that Flash is good at. So he used two of his swords to slice and dice some of those animal people, until all of a sudden King Baron went like, "Coo-oo! Coo-oo!" And Thun remembers him as Prince Baron. And Prince Baron gave him a sack full of those glowing berries. And as Thun grabs the sack full of those glowing berries. He threw over their heads, and Flash says, "Hey, are those?" And Rhino says, "Get down!" And then, boom! Pretty much destroyed the arena. Now, the arena is destroyed, but of course, Thun got a message from Prince Baron that they need to get out of here. So, they got out of the arena, caught up with Prince Baron, and Prince Baron knew that he was Flash Gordon, and he knew that he's the one he can stop him against Ming, while the small robot imprisoned both Zarkov and Dale until Flash destroyed the robot, and he grabbed the little robot, and he was going to say something which kind of put him in the sort of flashback, because he said the same words exactly what his father told him. And he had a flashback that every time when his father kept telling him things, he'll be like, mm-hmm. So I guess that kind of rubs off on him, huh? But the small robot made an escape. Well, I mean, he escaped his little mechanical body, but his brain stepped flying about. Anyway, two big robots showed up, and Thun and Prince Baron have those explosive berries on their arrows, and they shot their arrows, and it took all the robots down. Now they need to go into the main computer, and one big robot was talking to Ming, and Ming says, "Destroy them immediately!" And then when the robot was going after Zarkov, while Zarkov is working on their computer, the robot turned his hand into a knife, about ready to stab him, until Zarkov said, "Stop!" And he just stopped. Turns out that Zarkov controlled that robot. And he told him to send a message to the rest of the people, telling them that they're no longer going to be under Ming's control now. They're all free. And there comes Prince Baron, Thun, and the Rhino guy, freeing all the other slaves who didn't turn into animals. And the lab was completely destroyed into rubble. So, and then they're talking about the quantum crystals, that there were two of them. One Ming used as a ring, while the other one ended up in Zarkov's territory. And of course, Flash Gordon fell asleep. Now the next day, they fixed their rocket ship, and of course, Prince Baron gave Flash an arrowhead that has a symbol of a tree on it. If he meets another alien species, give him this. It's a sign of peace. So they took off into space. And as they were out into space, the quantum crystal teleported them to another part of the galaxy, and this huge, giant space slug showed up and started shooting some kind of a gas slime all over their ship, and it formed a bubble, and it was being wrapped by the tentacle of that slug, and of course it kept making faces looking more like Ming, and they're almost being under Ming's control, until Zarkov rewired the ship, used the quantum crystals, and got out of there. They finally went to another planet, and then they crash landed on a planet full of floating islands. Yeah, there are islands that float around in the sky. Oh, hey, showed a rabbit with wings. I heard about pigs have wings, but this is ridiculous. And they're trying to figure out where they're at, until all of a sudden, Flash and Zarkov starts hearing music, start hearing singing. And even Dale, she can hear it, but she's not mesmerized, unlike Flash and Zarkov. They both are mesmerized by the singing, until it turns out these blue-skinned, purple dress angelic women showed up, they were singing and flying, and they picked up Flash and Zarkov and left Dale behind. So she's like, now what? Until these Hawkmen showed up. Now, the Hawkman decided to help Dale by get reunited with Flash and Zarkov, because they're the only... She cannot go any further without them. So they're telling them that these women are taking Flash and Zarkov into their beehive cave overrun by giant bees, and they would feed them honey until they'll die. That's what they do. They lure men into the beehive's nest and feed them honey until they die. So Dale disguised herself as one of those majestic women, and there she found Flash guzzling a couple of honeys coming out of the hive. And then she found a couple of beeswax and shoved it into Flash's ears. So now he's snapped out of the singing. But there's Zarkov, completely naked with a covered in white sheet, and they're trying to snap Zarkov out. So Flash threw a beeswax into one ear, now the other. And now they're fighting their way out of the beehive until a bunch of Hawkmen found them. Now, this is, I cannot believe. One of the Hawkmen was trying to knock Flash out by doing trying to do the Vulcan neck bench, but went like this. Everybody knows what happens when somebody don't do the Vulcan neck bench right. Remember Spaceballs? What are you doing? Vulcan neck bench? No, that's too high, you idiot. Down here where the shoulder meets the neck. Like this? Yeah! But anyway, Flash, he slugged the guy for giving him a Vulcan neck bench, and he thought that would have knocked him out. But they decided to run, while at the same time, one of Ming's general runs up to Ming and told him that they were trying to find Flash and Zarkov and Dale, but they escaped. And as usual, he fed his general with one of these creatures. Anyway, the Hawk people took Flash, Zarkov, and Dale to their palace. And of course, they made their escape and ran. Oh yeah. And there we're going to meet Prince Valken. And this is going to remind you in that old 80s movie.
Gordon's alive!
I love Brian Blessed. You know, I love his performance as Prince Valken. I mean, I remember him in tons of British comedies. I mean, I cannot forget that one line he said in Blackadder.
Remove this woman from my sight, or I will eat her! Ah!
And a little behind-the-scene notice, all these hawk people who have those wings on their back, they couldn't sit down, so they had to lay on their bellies. And poor Brian Blessed, he had to sit down to look like a prince. So they built a perch for him, and he sat on the perch. And all the cast crew kept teasing him, going like, "Pretty potty, pretty polly, pretty party." And Brian was like, "Back off!" But anyway, Prince Valken and his men spotted Flash, Zarkov, and Dale. And of course, the famous line he said is,
"Hawkman, dive!"
You know, if I ever play Prince Valken, I would love to give an homage to Brian Blessed, because, I mean, you can't go wrong with Brian Blessed, am I right? Anyway, Prince Valken captured Dale, Flash, and Zarkov, and then all of a sudden he ordered his men to push him to the edge, and all three of them fell down. Meanwhile, Ming got pissed to one of his generals again. He snapped his neck. Seriously, he needs to stop killing his own men. If he keeps on killing his own men, he wouldn't even have enough to win in a certain battle. I mean, it's a waste of army here. Jeesh. Anyway, Ming had this device, and he puts it on his table, and it showed him a holographic image of Flash, Zarkov, and Dale. He stares at them and says, "Weak." What gives him the right to call them weak? Jeez. Meanwhile, where Prince Valken and his men push Flash, Zarkov, and Dale, turns out they landed in a really warm water. Of course, the water is pink. I guess in their planet, their water is pink and warm. Feels great, Flash says. And of course, Flash sees Valken took off his armor, and Flash says, "Look out!" And of course, Prince Valken says,
"Make room, commands! 'Tis Vulcan's turn!"
"Ha ha!" And he did a cannonball. And of course, one of his men says, "Good one, King." And then he takes him to actually, it turns out it's an outdoor bathhouse in a way, because it's so warm, so relaxing. You know, I wouldn't mind going to a bathhouse. I mean, I bet it's really nice being there. But anyway, there's a cave in the bathhouse. And, oh yeah, one thing I remembered in the serials, I remember when Prince Valken tries to get Dale's attention by doing shadow puppets. So this is what Prince Valken did in the comics, that he did some shadow puppets showing them how his people evolve and start having wings because they wanted to be like hawks. So therefore they start developing wings. Which I gotta say, he does a pretty good convincing shadow puppets. And of course, when Ming showed up and did some experiments on those hawk people and turned one of them into a human bat. But they told him about the experiment they did in that lair. So, they exploded it. And of course, him being excited, he slammed his fist in the water going like, BAM! I mean, he was amazed at how they were capable of have will against Ming the Merciless and all the great things they've done. So, Falcon, he invited him to one of his floating ships and has his men search for their crashed ship until they finally found the wrecked ship. Turns out one of the floating rocks smashed their ship. But the crystal is still unharmed, so Zarkov finally decided to use the crystal to make a better ship. So they stayed in one of their towers, and Flash sleeping on a hammock. I guess these hawk people, they sleep in hammocks. Anyway, Dale tells him to wake up, and Zarkov sent a message to him, telling him to come to their plane. It's ready. And it looks all brand new, pretty spotless. And they're about ready to go back home. They decided not to stick around, but the only thing Zarkov does, challenge Falcon a drinking game. And he says,
"I'll bring out the good stuff. Ha ha! I'll bring out the good stuff. Ha ha
ha! Always Zarkov and the liquor." So, he tried their liquor. And he asked them, do they got anything stronger? But nope. So, they kept drinking and drinking and drinking while they're waiting for Zarkov. And surprisingly, one thing about Zarkov, I can hold my liquor, but those bird people, they cannot hold theirs. And he quickly grabbed the thermal crystal, and they took off. And they finally ended up back to Earth. And they landed in Washington, D.C. Years later, now they become famous. Dale telling them the story of what she'd been through, the planets, and Zarkov telling the scientists how he was able to go through planet to planet and meeting all those alien people. While, well, surprisingly, Flash Gordon has a bunch of paparazzis who wouldn't leave him alone. They're getting really popular in their adventures. But now, Flash, Dale, and Zarkov, they want to go back in space. So now they're having this huge celebration, and of course Zarkov enjoying his vodka. They all gathered together once again, and of course there are these people holding up their signs saying, "We love Flash," and "Gordon's alive," and "He'll save every one of us. He'll save every one of us." Everybody waving, getting fives from Flash. And then he told him that there's something he needs to get inside of his ship. It won't take long. Found his old space uniform, and the rest of them got into the ship. Zarkov launching the crystal, getting things ready. Oh yeah, this comic book was made during the time when Barack Obama was president. And as you can see here, here's Barack Obama and Joe Biden. I mean, I know I should be making some politics jokes, but I don't want to get in trouble, so. But anyway, they finally went up into space. Meanwhile, Ming here is torturing Prince Falcon. He's trying to get some information that where is Flash and the others. And then all of a sudden, boom, they showed up in the nick of time. They showed up in the nick of time. Prince Falcon's men finally fought back. Flash Gordon dealing with all those animal men. What is it with bad guys who have animal army? I mean, in Buck Rodgers, they had animals who makes them talk. And now in this one, they're turning aliens, humanoid aliens, into animals. But anyway, Ming firing his laser at Flash. But of course he missed, and then Flash Gordon impaled him with a spear. But it turns out it's not the real Ming. It was just some sort of clone. 'Cause Ming melted until he's nothing but a pile of goo with a voice box and mechanical eyes. And of course Flash gives Prince Falcon the arrowhead from Prince Baron. So therefore, one thing they're going to do, Flash says, we're going to take this empire down, planet by planet, until the galaxy is free. And this is Flash Gordon. Now, there's some of the other stuff in the comic that, I mean, these are just short stories. One about young Flash as a child, Dale Arden and her investigative reporter adventures, Zarkov meeting some aliens, and of course a princess named Princess Daria, who's supposed to be like an underwater sea princess. And of course another story about Flash, where it's saying that he's really good on everything, and it's supposed to be his years in Harvard. He's good at track running, good at soccer, good at rugby, good at chess, rowboating, archery, and of course Taekwondo, because Harvard has the Harvard Taekwondo Club, fencing, polo, good at playing guitar. And of course, he has a keen eye because he saw a television about ready to collapse in front of his teacher. So he jumped right in front of this teacher, saving her life. And the teacher said, "Class dismiss." And then all of a sudden, he meets Prince Valiant. And for those of you who don't know who Prince Valiant is, he was one of those popular Robin Hood. I mean, like like if Robin Hood didn't become a thief but become a prince, but still spreads justice of London. And then there's a Christmas special and a short story in Russia, but I just focus more on the story. This comic is pretty darn good. I mean, compared to the Buck Rodgers one, this is pretty enjoyable. And now I hear that. Here's another thing I'm also hearing. Remember when I mentioned about George Clooney making his own version of Buck Rodgers? Well, I heard that Taika Waititi is making his own version of Flash Gordon. And we don't even know who's going to be playing Flash and Dell on this one. I mean, maybe it might be Chris Hemsworth? And Tessa Thomas as Dale Arden. Who knows? I just hope it turns out as good. Anyway, this is the multi-voice. This is Michael A. Grimm, aka Multi-Voice Reviewer, telling you guys to, if you enjoy this review, please leave a comment down below, hit like and subscribe for more. And the next one's going to be a theory, a crossover theory. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm the Multi-Voice Reviewer. I remember it so I can jog your memory.